Maria told us about the gift from God, and I would say that he was in a very bad mood when he created human being, allowing this to happen. Because we know when we are producing meat and products from animals, we offer them the most horrible production systems. And we can't change that because that's just the way it is. But what we can change with the Biosa, the opportunities with Biosa, is to change the use of the needles with the use of probiotics. Of course, we can't avoid preventing by vaccination, and that's most of the needles are going for vaccination, but we don't need the needles for therapy. It's a much healthier way to offer them Biosa. We have 3 ways of helping the animals. One of them is to give it orally through what we are calling Animal Biosa, and one of them is to help the environment or to change the composting processes in slurry, for instance, or to change the environment, all the pollution coming out in the stable, and all the smell problems. And for that we use Biosa Composter, which is actually a therapy Biosa product. Animal Biosa is a Vita Biosa product, and that means it's the same product as we drink. And that's a very good argument towards the farmers, because when we drink it until it's not poisoning anything, then the farmers are getting more open towards it. And the last way of treating the stables and the animals is a new product we have developed. Actually, is an Animal Biosa product, but we call it Biosa Air. And by that we see a lot of opportunities, and that is because of the legislation. It's very restricted on Animal Biosa, and we need to find opportunities or to think another way. For the time being, we are selling Biosa Composter in all countries. And we have labels for all languages, sort of, we can do it. It's the one with the pig on. And Animal Biosa with the cows, we are selling it as a silage additive. And that, I will come back to that, what opportunities we have in the future. And Biosa for high pressure in stables and also in composting factories. And the way we are in Denmark, in the Department of Agriculture, Biosa Composter is actually named an organic composting agent. And Animal Biosa is a feed additive, and Biosa Air, we call it a biological odor remover. The things we discover when we are treating slurry with Biosa Composter. It is, first of all, it's controlling all the processes. So we manage to lower pH. It's going rather quick, actually, and it's going below the level where ammonium and ammonia are competing. So we tend to keep it as water-soluble nitrogen component called NH4+, and that stays in the slurry when pH is very fastly reduced. And that's what we are doing with the composter. If the pH are rising slightly, then the soluble ammonia, I think it's called, NH4 plus are changing into NH3, which is on gas. And then it will evaporate and go out into the stable, or even worse, in the environment. What we are seeing, or what we are hearing from our farmers, is that the slurry is more easily handled. When it's pouring down the stable system, then it's very easily flowing, and they can they pull when they pull the stopper, then the slurry is just flowing out in the big gathering tank. Also, it's very easy to stir when it's going into the field. Before going into the field, it's very easily manageable. What we have seen as well is the sediment of the slurry, meaning all the stuff you can't use. It's just left in the tank when you have to empty it and put it on the plants. Is the sediment is reduced, so you're not going to manage that much sludge afterwards. And you are getting a very good contact with your neighbors, because you're not smelling that much when you are putting the slurry out in the field. So good neighborhood, it comes with that. We get results from our farmers. It's not research or anything. It's just we are interviewing our farmers and asking what have you accomplished with your Biosa composter. And in pig production, it's like it's getting lively. It's very nicely fermented, the slurry. It's not poisoned anymore. It's full of soap, actually, but it's not soap. It's like a soap bath. And it's foaming like this. And it's not it's not frequent in frequencies. It's just homogeneous. And as I mentioned before, it's easy to manage and to stir before driving it out in the field. And very important, the nitrogen is kept in the slurry. So it's very rich. It's rich for the plants. It hasn't evaporated out into the atmosphere. And it gets this, of course, pig slurry is pig slurry. You can't change it into a rose foam bath or anything. It will make it smell like a pig, but less like a pig, more like a forest or something. And that, of course, improves this environment inside the stable as well, and for the people handling the animals. Cow slurry is not that smelly, but you can smell it. So I wrote non-smelly, because that's the word of the slurry from cows. And also, again, the hours you work with it, they are reduced because you're not going to stir it that much. When we see cows in straw bedding, the bedding material is like you can take it up with a teaspoon. It's so porously and so light and so it's already decomposed and it's ready for use. So they will reduce the time with machines and also time with the men carrying it out. When we have all this nitrogen in the slurry, we have nitrogen enough for the plants, and also we have, with the straw, we have this carbon source, which is so important, more important in the soil with the nitrogen and carbon yeah. And of course, if you have cows in farmland out in free, then add about 1 per mil or 2 per mil in the amount of water. And that will keep out the slimy algae and what else is coming. And of course, it will have this beneficial effect.
Okay.
If you put it in lines, they will take out the biological lining, and it's poured with the water onto the nipples, they will get stuck and slimy, and the water will not come out. So it's a very big working or irritating problem for the farmer. In new pipes, you can do it, or you can clear them out with some chemical stuff before. But it's important you get rid of this biological lining, because it will loosen up.
Our experience is that initially there is this algae formation in the pipes and stuff, and it comes out, it's flushed out of the system, out of the pipes, and then there is no problem in using it.
No, then they were functioning very well. We have seen it in high pressure systems, and actually they are working against the calcium in the water, so they won't be calcified. So that's very positive effect. So, yes.
And second question was about this, you talked about nitrogen and lowering of pH. Would you say stabilization of pH, or would you say lowering of pH in composting?
Well, I think it has a sort of about 4 or something lower than that. The slurry itself, when the solid stuff and the liquid urine, when they are combining, then the processes are starting. And I think the pH, they're just lowering until a certain level, and that's it. But we will improve the rate of the pH lowering. And when the biological activity is raised, then it will keep on this level. Or we can say they're just going to ferment, and that was it's not poison we are putting out in the plants, it's a fermented slurry.
Okay, so basically you are stabilizing the pH by putting...
We are lowering the pH, yes.
But nitrogen will remain the same, isn't it? That was the nitrogen bond.
The nitrogen will remain as a NH4+ inside, because it's soluble in the water or the salt.
As a nitrate, basically.
Yes, so it keep instead of evaporate. When it first changes the form into NH3, then it will evaporate and you won't see it anymore. You will just annoy the environment. So you have to keep it as long as possible inside the slurry. Sorry?
The nitrogen cycle.
Yes.
In composting. So you are arresting that, or how is it?
You're keeping the best of the nitrogen in the slurry instead of leaving up in the air.
As NH4?
Yes, plus. Yeah, sorry. First of all, you will reduce your use of artificial fertilizer and pesticides, and you'll get a higher yield and a better health in the plants. And you will change the soil towards more loosened soil, getting the water supply down to the roots. Yeah.
I have a question, sorry, about that. Would you put the slurry on the field, or would you spray the biosa as well in the field? And if you do, how much do you have to spray?
It depends. If you want to get the full effect, then of course starting orally in the animal's digestive tract, that's the number one. But you can start in the slurry before, even when it's coming out of the animals in the stable. Or you can start out in the slurry tank 3 weeks before driving it out in the field. That's enough 3 weeks for fermentation.
Okay.
And about a week in the stable in order to get it easily flowing. That's a very good effect.
Okay.
So now for Animal Biosa, I've made this blue label in top of it. It means that it used to be community register of feed additives, and unfortunately that authorization expired November 2010. But we're still going on like nothing happens because they're working very slowly in the EU. But for the until then, we had a very good time with Animal Biosa, calling it a feed additive or a siling agent. And we had some very good results from Norway showing the effects of Animal Biosa in grass. And that's, first of all, it secured, of course, a very high formation of acid. And the right acid, of course, lactic acid and edetic acid. Not butyric acid, that's the one we're going to prevent. But lactic acid and edetic acid, that was the primary, or the two main acids. And with that production, of course, the pH are falling very, very rapidly, like when you are activating your biosa. It's the same process. And all the sugar tends to be fermented into organic acid, of course. So we will leave no or very little rest of or little bit of sugar in it. And when there's no sugar left, then the yeast, which are the very dangerous ones, when you have opened your silage, then the yeast will come because they love sugar and they love oxygen. So they will just grow in the surface of the silage. But we have improved that, what you call aerobe stability, by first of all getting the pH low, and I think the main thing is that we have taken out the sugar and also erased the CO2, the carbon dioxide evaporation from the silage. They don't like that. For the time being, we're still selling Animal Biosa in Poland and Germany and Denmark, Sweden.
And India also.
When we're kicking strictly on the silage quality, then we have seen a higher keeping quality in the bale. No matter if it's a round bale or square bale or a big pile. And we see, well, I've written no growth, but slightly growth of a little bit of mold in the silage, in the surface. But never inside, it's always in the surface. And animals eating Animal Biosa treated feed, they are achieving an improved feed conversion. That means you don't have to feed that much feed for getting the same gain. Also reduced incidence of mastitis and a drop in cell count, but that comes with time. When Maria told about the clearing of Biosa in human, exactly the same is happening in cows, because they're not bleeding like women. They are excluding all the toxic elements in the milk, so we see the cell count is rising very drastically when we start treating with Animal Biosa. But that will fall in a few weeks' time, in a month, depending on the state of health in the herd. Animal Biosa itself. We're doing this. Yeah, we're just doing this in Denmark because we have to do it the legal way. So we say, yeah, the farmer is treating his silage, and then you will achieve this and this. And they're not allowed to pour it inside the mouth. They have to put it through the feed.
But this is, yeah, so you're saying this is because of legislation?
Of course.
Otherwise it would be better to feed it directly
Yes.
to the animal?
And they will lick it, yeah.
Yeah.
The way of feeding pigs in Denmark is pretty much liquid feed. And for that we use the Animal Biosa for the lowering of pH. The optimum pH is about 4 to keep out toxic elements or pathogens. And it will leave the liquid feed with a fresh odor and very sound and very healthy to eat for the animals. And also that we see they eat it they're very happy to eat it. but when it lowers the pH of 4, then it's very sour for them, and they will leave it out. So about 4, 4.1, that's the optimum pH of the feed. In Germany, they made a research on slaughtering pigs, and what they found, it had a significantly effect on the meat percent, raising it from 55.8 to 57.9, and that was significant. As well as the pigs, they didn't have to eat that much, 2.86 kilo per kilo they growed, compared to 3.04. And also an average higher slaughter weight of about 1.5%. And they were giving about 60 milliliters per pig per day in the period. I think in the overall conclusion, I would just mention the veterinary expenses in this herd. They were giving 50 milliliters per day, dairy cows, and they managed to reduce the veterinary expenses 80%. That's quite a lot. And you can't tell the farmer that, but he has to experience that, and then he comes afterwards and say, it's fantastic. He actually earned very much on this. And exactly in a pig herd, the reduction is 50% because they, of course, a pig production, they have a lot of other diseases, but I think 50% reduction in veterinary expenses, that's a great deal. They were giving 2% because they had a problem with salmonella, and also this PRRS, which is reproductive lung disease. Also, it's both infecting the lungs and the reproductive system. But they used to get rid of this with a 2%. Normally we say 1%. But double up in cases like this.
What do you mean by 2% biodose?
Biodose, that means actually a medicine pump with just a very precise pump you add on your liquid system, and you put the Biosa on there, and it does exactly 2% on the pipe. So the feed is mixed up with 2% Biosa all the time. This is just what we recommend for average amount a day. For a big cow, 600 kilos, about 100 milliliter a day, and half of it. And in dry feed, we recommend a half to 1%. In the former example, it was 2 because they had a problem. But if no problem, and a half to 1% in dry feed, and about 1 to 5 per meal, or 0.5% in liquid feed.
Is that, sorry, Lene, is that
horses depends. We have little horses, we have big horses, so you just have to regulate the dosage for the horse's weight. Goats, sheep, they're getting less. And hen, chicken, about, if you have a problem, 2% again. In feed, that's per feed amount. And egg, you can spray eggs in fact in order to keep out the salmonella infection. So spray eggs, 10%. Fur animals are getting this very liquid feed, so about 2 per mil or 0.2. When you're producing chicken, they will come out in the fresh air and come out in a good environment. So the shelf is just cleared out with Biosa, and they will come out into the world.
In the incubation chamber?
Yes, or if you can do that, it's very hot in there, but if you can manage to do that, you have a problem. A good idea to spray the shelves.
And any benefit of, I guess you're saying, better health of the chicken or chicks, whatever?
Well, in the chicken, the effect in chicken is that they're not making this big mess on the eggs. the feces are more firm, solid. It's more solid and not splashed out in the eggs. So the eggs are getting more clean. That's the main purpose. They're not thinking health, these people. They're thinking cleanness in eggs.
Don't you calculate 1 milliliter
Per 5 kilo
Yeah.
of animal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just as a general rule?
That's the general. That is very good. 1 milliliter per 5 kilo. And in pets, we put 1 milliliter per 2 kilo. For a short period of time, we had this Biosa, and until someone told us that we couldn't sell liquid feed for horses. But it's still sold in Germany and in Sweden, and it's legal to sell in Sweden and in some parts of Germany. And it's an Animal Biosa product as well. It was based on apple fibers when we started it, but now it's actually Animal Biosa. And what is Maria Pernille mentioned her father with gastric ulcer, and we have a veterinarian up in north of Zealand. He is very happy with Biosa treating sports horses with towards gastric ulcer with the Biosa. And here, 1 milliliter per 5 kilo of weight. In England, we had this Brian of Norfolk. He was a competitor horse, a show jumper, and he had a severe problem with diarrhea. And he was fed 100 milliliter per day with the Biosa. And in a very short period of time, he was able to jump again. We're not allowed to feed Animal Biosa any longer. I think Animal Biosa Air is the solution. And what is the point we have to the selling points? Actually, they of course does not contain any chemical substances. People like to read that and hear that. And you can bath in it, you can do anything with it. And we know that today farmers, they use suits and gloves to manage what they're putting into the stables, but we know all of it. We can drink it and show it to the farmer. It's harmful. Also, it is, we need this, what you call size 16 points instruction manual that comes with the product. And that's what people like to read as well. It says a lot of things. And best of all, we have got it approved, environmental approved. The main things about Biosa Air is that it prevents a lot of these smelly products, prevents them to come out in the stable room. And also, again, it lowers the ammonia, which is it's not the smell problem, ammonia, but it's a very sticky problem for the lungs and your skin as well. When we have this in environmental improvement, it's good to have, because when you have employees in your stable, then you can just show this to the employee, say it's safe for you to use this, and no harm will happen to you when we're spraying it out into your face, and we're getting no problems with that. We have recently had this research in Denmark through a ventilation producer. They used the high pressure system, adding Biosa, and it was from the period from August the 13th to the September the 10th, 2009. What we actually saw here was that this is the control group at the beginning, and you can see the control group in the end of the period. Nothing happened, of course. They got the same treatment. Here we started up with the Biosa treatment, and you can see a very significant reduce after the period. system. And we see the effect from Biosa. It's a green one. It's a bit lower than the non-treated group. It's more visible there. And this is showing the amount of NH3 ammonia per hour per 1,000 kilo pig. They also made this a variation in days and day and night. And the average effects in 16 days on the ammonia evaporation actually came out to be a reduction on 47% using Biosa. I have to tell you that these figures, they are the way you are getting these figures. You're putting people into a room and you're collecting the air from the stable in glasses and you're letting the people smell. And they can just smell that using Biosa reduces the smell. That's Danish noses. We know for sure that German noses, they are more sensitive. So if you send these tests to Germany, we know that because the competitor to this company, a ventilation firm as well, they did the same, but they sent their results to Germany. And the German noses sensed that reduction was about 80%. So we do that next time, Bodo and Maria. You yeah.
Do you use in this tests or trials? Do you use any kind of equipment to measure?
Yes, they do. They have invented a sort of monitor, but the thing is today that you're using human noses. It's very old-fashioned, but it's still working, except that Danish noses are not that good. so the results of a conclusion of this test is that you can see in the control group they were a little less actually than in the Biosa Air group. I don't know if that has any bias in the system, but I think they. I think they took that into consideration. But the odor emission significantly was reduced, 53% by using Biosa, and the ammonia 47%, and they could reduce the need of ventilation with 27%. Just to summarize, Biosa composter is the same as Terra Biosa, and it's both we have certifications both of authorization and of organic production, and we have the certificate of free sale, which is usable in Costa Rica and Colombia, and yeah.
And Edie has become an expert at this.
Yes.
Trained her really well and how to
Yeah, it does. And for the time being, Animal Biosa, Probiosa, it's historical, unless you buy it from Sweden. It's the only place in the EU it is registered still. So you have to buy it from Sweden, but we produce it in Denmark, of course. And Biosa Air, which is the same as Vita Biosa and Animal Biosa. We have the certificate of manufacture as we use for food products or the Vita Biosa. And we also have the certificate of authorization and organic production. So everything comes with the product. So you have to take only these authorizations and go to your government or whoever decides in your country and fight for it. I'm finished. No more. Thank you very much.